This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the...
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 19 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Police are spread out all over southeast Manitoba investigating a deadly police shooting. It happened early this morning in Niverville. The CBC's reporter Megan Kitchenson is in Niverville with the latest. Megan.
Well, actually, I'm a little bit further south. I am in Otterburn now at Providence College, and this is a third scene involving this incident. So what I can tell you is around 3 o'clock this morning, police shot a suspect in a vehicle that is in Niverville on Drover's Run, and that our CMP forensic investigators are there on the scene right now. They are going over a black F-350. Now, a little bit further south of Niverville on Highway 59, there is a Winnipeg police vehicle with more than a dozen bullet holes in the windshield. Now, where I am at Providence College, police tape is up around the college campus, the south part of the lawn, and police investigators are here on the scene. We've just literally moments ago spoke with the provost here at Providence College, and they said that everyone here is safe and that they do have access to their residences here, but police are here going over an area in the in a yard south of Providence College. We're hoping to hear more from police. From what I understand, one woman was arrested in connection with this, and another person took off in a vehicle. That person is believed to be in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan RCMP say that they believe that the stolen vehicle is in the area of Esterhazy and could be near Fort Qu'Appelle right now in that province. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thank you, Megan. Megan Ketchison reporting from Providence College. Meanwhile, people in Niverville are stunned. Former Mayor Clarence Braun says when the incident started, he was asleep at home around 2 blocks away. It was only when he came out to work and saw the swarms of law enforcement officials, he realized something violent had happened. Braun says Niverville is normally a quiet town.
I don't think what we see here reflects on our community specifically, but it does reflect on the culture that we live in today.
Braun says he's thankful to law enforcement for protecting his community. In other news, there's hope the financial pinch may soon ease a bit for Canadians. For the first time in 4 years, interest rates are going down. As Denise Hederi reports now on why the central bank decided to cut its rate.
Good morning. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem announcing its interest rate is dropping today from 5% to 4.75%.
The considerable progress we've made restoring price stability is welcome news for Canadians.
Inflation rates in Canada have moved closer to the central bank's target. And Macklem also says the bank has confidence inflation will keep moving in that downward direction. So while this is a small cut to interest rates, there could be more.
It's welcome news for a lot of Canadians who've been carrying very high debt levels.
Frances Donald is the chief economist with Manulife. She points out there is no guarantee of a second drop this summer.
Now, they don't really commit to the July cut, although he's definitely left that on the table. What they've signaled is that they expect they can continue to cut rates over the course of this year.
The next interest rate announcement is scheduled for July 24th. Denise Hederi, CBC News, Calgary.
Lawmakers are once again demanding more details about Monday's damming report, suggesting some members of Parliament may have been colluding with foreign governments. David McGuinty is the chair of the National Security and Intelligence Committee that produced the report. He explains why revealing that information is not so simple.
We have gone as far as we can in this review to reveal information without being in breach of the Security of Information Act. That's as much as
The report alleges a small number of MPs accepted perks from foreign states, including India and China, in exchange for privileged information. But their IDs were redacted. Officials say there may still be a police investigation, and the names could come out then. And the European Union's climate service says last month was the hottest May on record, capping an unprecedented 12 straight months of record temperatures around the world. Susan Ormiston has more.
It's confirmed. A stretch of record-breaking global temperatures have continued month over month for a full year, from last June to this May, each month hotter than in any other year since the late 1800s. The UN Secretary General warned the planet is sending us a message, but we're not listening.
Climate change is here. It is terrifying, and it is just the beginning.
Antonio Guterres urged G7 countries meeting later this month to slash CO2 emissions faster and further. Temperatures are expected to ease a bit as the weather pattern El Niño gives way to La Niña later this year. But the World Meteorological Organization predicts we will experience another record-breaking year of heat within the next 5 years. All this on the eve of European Union elections, where far-right parties are urging voters to reject, quote, climate hysteria. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Amsterdam.
Speaking of the weather, in Winnipeg, windy today with a chance of scattered showers and a risk of a thunderstorm, a high around 21 degrees. In Brandon, a chance of showers and windy, a high of 18. In Dauphin, you could see rain, wind, and a high of 17. Flin Flon, rain with a high of 8. Thompson, cloudy and rainy, a high of 11. And in Churchill, you're seeing a rainfall warning today, heavy rain at times, and windy, a high of +1 in Churchill.
Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining us today for Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, the CBC Listen app, the CBC News app, CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. My goodness, we're everywhere. I'm just grateful that you're with us today. I'm Janet Stewart. Today, we have a big conversation on our hands, our calling conversation. Cell phones in schools, should they be allowed? Should they be allowed just with restrictions? Should they be banned altogether? We want to hear from you today. So we'll be opening our listener lines at 12:30. Join us for this call-in conversation. We're going to talk to someone who is organizing the Pride celebration in Winnipegosis this weekend to hear why it's so important to them. But we begin today with the developing story out of Niverville. You just heard CBC's Megan Ketchison reporting live in our newscast. This is a big breaking story, started this morning, happened around 3 a.m. RCMP say the reason for a large police presence in Niverville is that someone was shot. It was a police-involved shooting. One man is dead. Police have a woman in custody. They are in the area of Drover's Run in Niverville and expect to be there, have it blocked off for most of the day. Megan Ketchison was in Niverville, has been since early this morning. One of the many people she spoke to today in Niverville was former Mayor Clarence Braun.
Well, I actually came late this morning. Usually I get to the office about 5 o'clock in the morning. This morning I came by at around 6:30 and saw everything happening here and went to Facebook to see if there was anything that would be posted. And I did see the RCMP had released a statement of something, and when I drove by, I saw Winnipeg Police and I saw RCMP, and I thought, well, that's really interesting that Winnipeg Police would be involved with this as well. So I surmised, don't know this, but I surmised that it was probably something that came out of Winnipeg, and that's why they were involved.
Tell me about what you saw on Highway 59.
Yeah, Highway 59, there was a Winnipeg police cruiser with a smashed driver's side front end and bullet holes through the windshield. So I wondered if the two were it would be a coincidence if they weren't connected, but apparently there is some connection to the two scenes.
And so when you see this, there's a truck here, tarps smashed, you've got bullet holes in a Winnipeg police vehicle nearby. What goes through your mind?
Well, number one, to all those people who serve the RCMP and the police, I said to the RCMP officer this morning when I was talking to him, I couldn't do their job. The things that they face on a regular basis, and they're becoming more normal in our society, and that's a sad thing. I don't think what we see here reflects on our community specifically, but it does impact. It does reflect on the culture that we live in today.
A lot of people I spoke to said they're shocked. This is not what you see in a sleepy little town.
No, it's not. But it's with growth comes more attention, and I'd be surprised if there was anybody local involved with this. But having said that, human nature is what it is. People get into difficult circumstances. I can't fathom personally how something like this could have happened, but then that's not the world I live in. But some people live in a different world, a more challenging world.
What part of town do you live in?
I live just on the golf course here, just about a block and a half from here.
This happened about 3 a.m. Did you hear anything?
Didn't hear anything at all. Slept right through it.
Interesting. So, I mean, this is a little ways away from?
Yeah, it's about 2 blocks down that road over there. Yeah.
Right. You say any other thoughts about, with this scene here?
Just you feel bad for everybody involved. There's a family on the other side of the deceased person. No matter what contributed to this having happened, there's a family there that's going to miss somebody, and so we just we just wish them the best. And like I said, to the law enforcement, I'm actually overwhelmed. The things they do to protect us, and so appreciate them.
That was Clarence Braun of Niverville speaking with CBC's Megan Ketchison today. Again, there has been a police-involved shooting, 1 man killed in an area of Niverville. The Winnipeg Police Service, say they will hold a news conference on this today at 1 p.m. You can expect that will be carried on our CBC Manitoba news website. That's cbc.ca/Manitoba as well. We will update you on this story as it develops throughout the day. You can always find the latest on our website and on our newscast tonight at 6 p.m.
Your local news at your fingertips.
CBC News has a local news app made for your phone or tablet.
So don't waste time scrolling for the local stories you want. Just download the app to get the information that matters to you when it happens.
And how you want it.
Another way to get your local news. The CBC News app. Download it today.
It is 12:12. You are listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Janet Stewart. What do you think of cell phone usage in schools? That's the topic of our call-in conversation today after the 12:30 news and weather. Should cell phones be restricted during learning times, or should they be banned from schools outright? Join our call-in conversation today. We'd love to hear what you think. Our special guest is a professor of education who studies technology in schools and education and its impact. Today, Thompson is feeling optimistic. Thompson's mayor is the leader of that optimism. The city has its challenges, she admits, but Colleen Smook says a lot of work is being done to make life better there for everyone in Manitoba's northern capital. We heard yesterday on Radio Noon that the RCMP detachment in Thompson is recruiting to fill current vacancies. Well, it turns out the fire paramedic service also needs people in Thompson. Here's more from a conversation CBC's Jenna Dulwich had with Mayor Colleen Smook.
Fire department's actually very short on their staff too. We have managed to hire and recruit a few, but our fire department is firefighters / emergency responders. So you have to actually be paramedic, fireman to be hired in our fire department. So that makes it very hard to have these dual people. And then what happens is they're also poached once, because in Thompson, we do as many calls as a city of the size of Brandon. And our fire department, we haven't increased actually the size of our fire department since the early 2000s. So, and they've got the same old building, everybody's crowded and the whole 9 yards. And now that, you're female, male, you try and make room, more compatible, and it just isn't possible. So we definitely need to make the conditions they work under better. And if you've worked in our fire department and as emergency responder and fireman, you actually, in Thompson, they laugh, they say you get as much training in 6 months as you can in 5 to 10 years in other communities, because you literally see it all and work at it all. And then even in the north, our wages aren't comparable to some in the south, if you can believe it. So when you're 6 months to a year in and you're basically burnt out because of all the overtime and that you have to put, then you've got people in the south that are basically, they see how capable our young firemen and that are. So, and they too want to get closer to home, be closer to families. So a lot of them just come to Thompson basically because they know in 6 months to a year they'll have enough training that they can go other places and get promotions and that. And even here in Thompson, you're very lucky. You could be 6 months to a year and getting your promotions. It might take you 10 years down south or more. So it's sort of a in and outdoor and makes it very challenging for us. And the firefighters, paramedics up here, we have such a great bunch, and the trouble is they don't turn down any work. They're always there. So they put in the overtime, they put in the call outs and that, but the detriment is there comes a point when they just can't handle it anymore and have to move on. So that's definitely a challenge for us and for them.
So how is Thompson working to increase sustainability but also retain the employees that are here? So
we've basically actually been working, the province is very good lately. We've been working with them with different ideas and how we can, even with the firefighter paramedics, we're looking at different ways how we can, support them maybe with more paramedics. Like say at the Wellbriety Center, it's one of our calls that we get a lot of calls to. So maybe if we can get a couple paramedics working in there, it would ease the calls on our ambulance service and that. Downtown, if we can have, vans and that. There's a medical van from MKO. If they can go around and sort of monitor the diabetics or people on the street to make sure that they're, healthier, that'll cut down on our calls. So if we all work together and just decrease some of the needs and wants or spread it over a different group of people, I think that'll definitely be one of our advantages.
And what would be the key to building the team like that, like increasing capacity, more people, but money?
It's working, some funding, but it's basically working with like Shared Health to get them to understand. And they actually come up here a few weeks ago and took a look. They toured and saw what they can do, even met with the RCMP, the firefighters, with everything to see that. The funding is coming. As we're pilot projects for a lot of things, and we always say we're the pilot project kings because we'll take on a pilot project, and if it doesn't work out, we never knock anybody because at least somebody has tried something. So that, and we have our staff and administration has gone at the city has gone far beyond theirs, and the commitments of, like, let's say, the Mamaweetuck Center, Keewatin Tribal Council, MKO, NCN, everybody is on board together to see how we can make it, a much better place to live and work, so that everybody is working together instead of in silos. And that's what the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan has started bringing together. It's all about what can we do for recreation for the kids, about the more lighting downtown, more lighting into that, and just keeping the public informed. So that's definitely all things that it may seem like little things, but that's definitely what brings everything together. We have a lot of work that we're doing up here. We've got, in addition to the high school, we've got the bridge under construction, we've got the airport under construction, the pools, like I said, started this week. It's just the roads and renewal. You can see that Thompson is moving in a positive. There hasn't been this much activity in the Thompson in decades. So I think even businesses looking to come to Thompson now are building. We have new owners of the mall that are interested in working with us and working with the people to see how they can make, it better for everybody. So I think if people get that little bit of an upbeat attitude, that we'll overcome anything.
That's Thompson's Mayor Colleen Smook speaking with CBC's Jenna Dulowich.
Angeline Tadaweo hosts The Block.
Afrobeats to jazz, hip-hop to R&B, calypso, Kez the Band, Michelle Montano, Bob Marley, Bounty Killer. So we really give all these artists a chance to shine, and the key is in the programming, in making it make sense, and making sure that the music is fluid, a fluid experience.
The Block with Angeline Tadaweo. Available now on CBC Listen.
It is 12:20. You're listening to Radio Noon. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll open the live phone lines so you can join our conversation today about cell phones in schools. Do you think they're important for kids to have them? Do you want to know that your child, your grandchild, has a cell phone with them at all times? Or do you think that cell phone might be a distraction in the classroom? Should classrooms ban cell phones completely? Should they be restricted only during learning times or during the entire school day? The largest school division in Manitoba is considering putting together a policy that is consistent across that school board, school district. What do you think? What would you like to see happen? Join our live conversation today at 12:35 p.m. Right now, we're sitting under a mix of sun and clouds with a chance of seeing some more scattered showers and even a risk of a thunderstorm today in Winnipeg. There is a rainfall warning in place for some areas up north in Manitoba today, to Dooley Lake and Churchill. You'll get another 50 millimeters by noon tomorrow. Scattered showers are a possibility, and as I mentioned, a thunderstorm is also possible in southern Manitoba today. Tomorrow will be mainly sunny. Friday, mainly sunny as well in the Red River Valley. Saturday looks mainly sunny. Sunday brings with it a mix of sun and clouds. Riley Lachuk, our weather specialist, will join us. Lachuk. Did I say Lachuk? Riley Lachuk will join us after the 12:30 news with a more complete look at your Manitoba forecast. Sometimes you say something, you say Lachuk. Did I say that correctly? Lachuk. I can't even tell anymore. So forgive me as I question myself out loud. Cindy Blythe is our next guest. She is one of the organizers of a Pride celebration in Winnipeg this weekend. Of course, it is Pride season. We've seen the big Pride celebrations happen in Winnipeg last weekend, but Pride season continues all over the province. Hello, Cindy Blythe. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you. I guess it's not morning. Good afternoon. I'm so pleased to be here.
Oh, well, I'm thrilled to have you. How important is it to you to have Pride celebrated in your home in Winnipegosis?
It's terribly important. And, I was thinking about this in kind of thinking about talking to you, and I realized I feel a little bit like a Who from Whoville. We're here, we're here, we're here. Are you familiar with Dr. Seuss?
I am. I love the Who's. Yeah.
And because I think that a lot of people get kind of lost in the idea that Pride only happens in the big cities, and that there aren't any people in the LGBTQ community out here in the sticks. But there are, and we're here. And so it's very important for us to have a place to be and to show our pride.
And why is that important, that the community know you're there?
Right. And you know what? That's kind of why we started this up here in Winnipegosis. This is our third year. My wife and I work at the Winnipegosis Medical Clinic, and we have realized that, there's kind of a lot of people in our community who they're good-hearted folks, and they really want to do the right thing, but they just don't know, and they don't feel like they have a chance to know. And so we said, let's have a celebration. Let's get out there and be seen. Let's give the folks who don't understand what's going on in this community a chance to understand. And let's give the members of this LGBTQ plus community a chance to see other folks being out there. These are, role models that you don't have to be, involved in some kind of a formalized, organized kind of event with people who need role models. Sometimes just being out and being seen. And, of course, my wife and I were very visible in this community. Everybody knows us. And so we just wanted to give a chance for celebration, say, hey, we're a fun-loving community. This can be a lot of fun. We do a lot of fun things, but it has some very serious ramifications as well because, I'm 60 years old, right? I'm not a spring chicken. And I grew up in the United States in the 60s and 70s. And that was a very dark time to be gay in the States. And maybe here too, I don't know. And so it took me 40 plus years to really come to an acceptance of myself. And more than that, a love for myself, a place where I could say, not only is it okay to be gay, it's fabulous. It's just fabulous to be gay. I love who I am. I love where I sit in myself, in my skin. And that was very, very hard for me. And I want to be a part of the solution that makes it okay for children to grow up being okay in their skin. I don't want anyone else to have the kind of pain that I had growing up. I want there to be life for these kids and for these young adults. So no, it's very serious and very important.
As an American, and now looking at what's happening in the States, we see a lot of divisions that seem to just be getting wider and wider, and a lot of them seem to be based on fear. How important, like fear of the other and misunderstandings and some stuff that's just not true, that's being sold as if it is, out of fear and political positioning. How important is it to you to keep the lines of communication going and sort of dispel some of that unnecessary fear?
Well, yeah, that's the only way that we can avoid that kind of deep polarization is to talk to each other, to know each other. I've always said that a person who is uncomfortable with the LGBT community simply needs to know some of them. They just need to get to know them on a personal level. And it may take one or two or three people that you know before you begin to say, wow, this is like okay. These people are not all that weird. They're just people. And I may be the first or the second person who that questioning, other person is interacting with. And I may feel rejected, and I may feel, like I've been hated on, but somebody's got to be the number one and the number two so they can get to number three and begin to say, oh, well, I guess maybe I was wrong. And so it's important to be out there. It's important to stay in conversation. It's important not to hide behind walls because that's exactly how we get entrenched and into our sides. And, we don't have to agree all the time, but I think that there is a huge case to be made for civility. And, one of the things that we do at our Pride event is we try to have sort of a central location where people can come and talk to us. Always willing to talk. We're always willing to be civil, to communicate and to share. We don't necessarily need to convince. but let's know each other. Let's be in relationship.
You're just making friends.
Yes.
So, Cindy, tell us how people can make friends with their neighbors in Winnipegosis this weekend. What's going on?
I'll tell you, we are so excited. And like I said, it's our third year, and we've kind of been making this up from scratch. But this year, we're super excited. You can find us, by the way, on Facebook at Winnipegosis Pride. And all of the information is there. And you can private message Tasha at Winnipegosis Pride. And if you are interested in any of our events, or if you need more information, or you want to, connect with a human, we're always happy to connect. So, yeah, this weekend, Friday night, we're super excited about this. We're going to have Dr. Shane Reitmeyer. He's a physician in Portage La Prairie, and he does a lot of transgender care. And he's going to be giving a presentation about sexuality and gender, exploring hormones and puberty blockers.
Now,
and
Cindy, I hate to
Yes.
do this but we're running out of time for the 12:30 news.
I'm sorry.
Again, the point of this Zoom and this chat that they can find more information about, anybody who's listening on your Facebook page, is some people might be scared, but it's just to answer questions if you have questions, correct?
Absolutely. You know what? It never hurts to ask, right? That we're not proselytizing, we're not converting anybody to anything. We're
So
just saying, please
ask.
know us. Just know
Cindy
us.
Blythe, thanks so much for joining us. Happy Pride.
Thank you, Janet. You have a great day.
Bye. Cindy Blythe is one of the organizers of the Winnipegosis Pride celebration. Right now, your time is 12:30.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 20 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg police will reveal details of their role in a police-related shooting in Niverville. We're expecting that in a half an hour's time. One man is dead. Police say they'll hold a news conference at 1 p.m. RCMP in Saskatchewan say they're looking for a suspect connected to the Niverville incident. They believe the man is headed to the Fort Capel area. Police continue to comb for evidence at two scenes in Niverville. Hanak Nagash owns a coffee shop in the town.
The amount of the police present when you hear it is shooting, it's in small town, never happened like this before. It just shooks you a little bit.
Meanwhile, students in Niverville schools are being kept inside today, including for recess and lunch. The superintendent at Hanover School Division says the hold and secure is out of an abundance of caution. This morning, court heard from a second forensic psychiatrist in the murder trial of Jeremy Skibitsky, and his expert opinion was very different from what we heard yesterday. The CBC's Cameron McLean reports. And a warning, this story contains disturbing details.
Dr. Gary Shamovitz came from Southern Ontario to testify in court today about his assessment of Jeremy Skibitsky. He spent 8 hours interviewing the confessed serial killer, plus reviewed his medical history and his videotaped confession. He diagnosed Skibitsky with antisocial personality and substance use disorders, as well as homicidal necrophilia. Skibitsky is charged with first-degree murder in the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and a fourth unidentified woman given the name Mashkode Bishike Ikwe Iban. He admitted to killing each of them, then having sex with them and disposing of them in garbage bins. But he's arguing he is not criminally responsible due to mental disorder. The Crown expert disagreed with the diagnosis given the day before by the defense's expert. That British psychiatrist says Skibitsky has schizophrenia. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And some welcome news for a lot of people across the country today. The Bank of Canada has made its first interest rate cut in 4 years. Here's Bank Governor Tiff Macklem with some of the reasons for his decision.
We've come a long way in the fight against inflation, and our confidence that inflation will continue to move closer to the 2% target has increased in recent months. The considerable progress we've made restoring price stability is welcome news for Canadians.
The BOC, the bank, lowered its overnight rate by 25 basis points to 4.75%. Canada is the first G7 country so far to ease its monetary policy this year, and economists expect the bank could reduce rates further as Canadians struggle to manage rising debt levels. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thank you very much.
Back
Matt
soon.
Humphrey. Excellent. Riley Lachuk joins us now. Hello, Riley.
We're talking rain again today.
Yay!
With rainfall warnings in place for Churchill to Dooley Lake, kind of around that Hudson Bay coast there, because we are seeing some pretty significant rainfall actually falling now and will continue to fall as we get through the rest of the day today into the day tomorrow. So here in southern Manitoba, under a mix of sun and clouds at the moment, a little bit of a scattered shower activity as forecast starting to develop in western and west central parts of Manitoba. We'll start to see some of that moving to the east as we get through the day into the afternoon hours today. And some of this could even bubble up into a few scattered thunderstorms this afternoon. So be mindful of that. No radar coverage in the north, but we do have showers falling through the Shamattawa region, Gillam, to Dooley Lake, into the Flin Flon Lynn Lake region right now. And some of that heavier band and heavier pockets of rain falling along the Hudson Bay coast. So we're looking at a pretty wet couple of days ahead for northern Manitoba. For the rest of us in southern Manitoba, scattered instability, maybe a few thunderstorms through the afternoon, but that rain continuing through the evening hours through the Hudson Bay coast, the Thompson region, even as far south as Island Lake and God's Lake, getting some showers still through the overnight hours into the early morning tomorrow. That does slowly start to taper off to some showers as we get through the rest of Thursday into Friday, where we could see a little bit of mixed precipitation in the Lynn Lake and Brochet regions through the early part of Friday as temperatures dip a little bit below the freezing mark. Otherwise, Friday looking like a mix of sun and clouds in southern Manitoba. Still some continued scattered precipitation, though, along the Hudson Bay coast. So we're looking at pretty significant rainfall in the amounts of, by the time we get to about Friday lunchtime, up to 80 millimeters in the Churchill region into Brochet to Dooley Lake. So we're looking at some pretty prolonged rainfall and wet weather. Thompson, 25 to 30 millimeters, Gillam 20 to 30 millimeters, the Lynn Lake region 15 to 20 millimeters. Not done with that yet, because we're going to talk about the winds, because the winds are going to be a major factor in this as well for all of us in Manitoba. Through the afternoon today, west winds 40 gusting to 60 in southern Manitoba, more like 50 gusting 70 along the Hudson Bay coast. And as we get into the morning tomorrow, those winds pick up. Onshore flow off of Hudson Bay will really bring temperatures down, but will also really bring up the winds. So we're looking at winds first thing in the morning Thursday in Churchill, for example, at about 50 gusting to about 90 or 95 kilometers an hour. So we're looking at very windy conditions along the Hudson Bay coast. Here in southern Manitoba, northwest winds 30 gusting 50 through the day. So another breezy one tomorrow, but winds stay at about 80 to 90 kilometers an hour along the Hudson Bay coast through the day on Thursday. 3 degrees in Churchill today, 11 in Thompson, about 17 to 20 or so across southern Manitoba. I've got us at 21 this afternoon, 17 tomorrow, and then we're looking at temperatures in the low to mid 20s as we get towards the early part of next week.
Riley Lachuk, thank you for keeping an eye on all of this for us.
You're welcome. Lots to talk about today.
Yes, absolutely. There seems to be lots to talk about every day, doesn't it? Riley Lachuk is our weather specialist, of course, here at CBC Manitoba, and he will be back during Up to Speed today. That's the program here on CBC Radio 1 that airs over your drive home period from 3 to 6 p.m. The host of that program, Faith Fundal, will join us a little later in the program to tell us what's coming up on Up to Speed today. Right now, it's time for our call-in conversation. We want to hear from you. What do you think of cell phones in schools? Should they be restricted during learning times or banned outright? Do you think they should be used and incorporated? And if so, at what age is it appropriate for a child to have access to a cell phone, to have their own phone with them at school? Our guest today is David Chorney. David Chorney is a professor in the Faculty of Education at the University of Alberta. Thank you for joining us by Zoom today, sir.
Thank you, Janet. Happy to be here.
Now, I'll give the listeners our number again to call. We want you to join this conversation that David and I are about to have about cell phones in school. This is something that Manitobans need to think about. Right now, the head of the largest school division in Manitoba is considering a uniform policy for the division rather than piecemeal. This school does this school does this. Matt Henderson wants to create a uniform policy. So weigh in now. What do you think that policy should say? What would you like the policy for the school division where you are to say? 204-780-0893 is our number to call. Join us now, 204-780-0893. Now, David, where do you fall on this conversation? What do you think the impact is of cell phones in school?
Yeah, thank you, Janet. It's it may seem easy at first to just say there should be a ban. Kids should be allowed to do what they want, but when we consider, what's best for students today and to allow the teachers to do their job well, I've come to the decision, within my own opinions and with the research I've done and things that I've read, that having a straight out ban for kids K through 6 is in their best interests. And there's really nothing lost by not allowing kids in kindergarten through grade 6 to not have their phones with them.
Why is it in their best interests? What have you learned or heard or discovered that makes you believe it's in their best interest?
Well, first of all, they're quite young to regulate the use of their cell phones. If they're allowed to have them, they will have them. They will use them. They'll be looking on them. It's common knowledge that there's a lot of social media applications that they shouldn't be having, that they will go on. There's this addictive component to the phone itself, notwithstanding all the apps that they want to be looking at. It's a huge distraction for kids, and to have them with their phones in their hands just takes away the job of the teacher and the extra policing, the monitoring of it, the discipline that has to go along with it, just not necessary. At that older grade level, though, the grade 7 to 12 level, I think there's many schools throughout BC, Saskatchewan's coming forth with it, Ontario, here in Alberta where I live, where there's simple enough policies that can be put in place where the kids in grade 7 to 12, sure, you can bring your phone with you to school, but it's not going to be out during school. It's kept in your knapsack, it's kept, on silent mode, just not out, unless the teacher deems it appropriate that we're going to be using the phone for a particular reason, an educational, pedagogical reason. And then obviously they're taken out and used for a brief period of time. And then again, put away until needed. That's my take on it. K to 6 shouldn't have it. 7 to 12, teacher discretion, if it's for pedagogical, school-based reasons that have been thought out and again, are in the best interest of the students to use their phone in that way, in that class, for that particular assignment or whatnot.
We have callers joining us now to join our conversation. Hi there. Thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hi.
Hi. I understand you're a retired teacher.
Yeah, 4 years.
Where do you stand on this question of cell phones in class?
I agree absolutely with your guest. I don't think it's needed, and I would go even further. I mean, if you say bring the phones, if you need them, we'll let you know. No, because then you get into all this sneaky, I was just checking something, or, no phones. That's it, that's all. The schools and the divisions are investing money all the time in multimedia, in laptops, all this stuff. They've got enough that they can look up stuff. You know what I mean?
So David was nodding as he listened to you speaking. David, what we're hearing from our retired teacher is that you can say, put your phones away, but there's going to be kids who sneak those phones out and, just have to send a text message or just have to check their feeds. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it goes back. Yeah, I agree. I agree with the caller as well. If they have them at hand, they're going to want to use them. But from a teacher's perspective, hypothetically, you may want to take your class out and do a geocaching assignment. You may want to go somewhere outside of the school grounds and have data access. And so if this is thought out, if it's pre-planned, then using devices for those kind of activities, I see purposeful. And again, not just willy-nilly, whip out your phones now, folks. It needs to be thought through. And again, just situations too where some kids may have, medical conditions where their phone is imperative for them for, say, blood sugar, glucose testing. One other aspect of it is those kids who are in the higher grades, grade 11, likely grade 12, they might be 18 years old and already are an adult who've bought their own phone, who own it, pay for their own data. Again, huge slippery slope to say you as an adult can't have your phone with you, for kids that are that age and maybe fully responsible with their own lives. But Yeah, I don't disagree with the caller. It gets to be a distraction, and it's Janet. It's one more distraction that teachers don't need in the classrooms today. Teaching's tough enough with just everything the way it's supposed to be, let alone these added distractions of technology in the young hands.
We also have Lauren joining us now. Hi, Lauren. Thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hi, I'm a teacher, and I've been a teacher since 2007, high school. And I think there needs to just be no cell phones in school. The hardest part of my job is the cell phone. And
How so?
Dealing with the cell, well, because not every teacher does do the same thing. There are many teachers that have, frankly, just thrown in the towel on the argument because nobody really wants to fight about these things and have to call administration, et cetera, to come and deal with it. So there's lots of teachers that have just decided that they will let people make their own decisions. And if you miss content that's important, that is the decision you've made. But the reality is teenagers, and I don't actually agree with the piece about them being adults, their prefrontal lobes are not fully developed until 25. We make a lot of really terrible decisions when we're younger. And at that point, your phone and what's going on in your phone might actually feel more important to you because I'm going to be honest, it's an addiction, might feel more important than what I'm teaching you at the time. It's not till, 5-6 years later that you might realize that you really wish you had actually graduated on time or completed the work, or that you could have been far more successful if somebody else who was an adult who had made that decision for you to keep it away. My kids do so much better. I do have a cell phone locker where we put them.
Okay, that's how you handle it.
That's how I handle it. Yeah.
So what happens? Your students come into your class?
Yes, but I'm going to be honest, it's the same as every policy. When it's a classroom policy, there's always going to be students who want to debate it, who want to talk about it. There's the students who just naturally walk in your room and put their phone away and don't ask anything about it. And then there's the ones that you have to remind. And then I find that if I don't stick with it really hard, the second I let up on it, the phones are all of a sudden back out. I forgot. And it constantly goes back to that cycle. So I think that if there was just a universal policy, and it's also for me, not just my classroom, I find it really sad when I see kids who could be socially interacting with each other in the hallways, and they're not. I will go downstairs to the cafeteria, and there's 5 kids sitting together at a table and not talking to each other because they're all on their devices. There's enough time at home to be on your device. I think we're really missing out. I spend time rebuilding social interaction with my kids because we spend so much time looking through devices rather than looking at each other.
Lauren, thank you so much for calling today.
Thank you.
David, let me ask you about that. A couple of things that Lauren brought up. One was she said, let's face it, it's an addiction. Do you believe phones are addictive?
100% I do. And that's one of the main concerns. That's why I did a study a few years ago with just grade 5 kids here in Edmonton, because I was aware of that. But, and there was no research in that for that age group. It's a huge concern. And frankly, Janet, it's an addiction for our young adults and older adults as well. It's just that embedded, the embedded part of the algorithms, which make people want to use their phone, have it by them. They feel fidgety if they don't have it next to them. The instant ting or a ping needs to be responded to. So yeah, and as adults, we can regulate better. We often maybe don't, but we can much more so than our youth of 5 years to 17-year-old kids.
Yeah, and we'll come back to the other point that Lauren made that I found so interesting in just a moment. But first, I don't want to keep Dee waiting any longer. Dee, thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I understand you're calling from Brandon.
I am.
And you have 3 teenagers in high school. So I'm guessing the cell phone topic is one that is alive and well in your home.
Yes, all the time. And I actually really appreciate the conversation that you and Mr. Torney were having previously, because that's where my point comes from. We know that cell phones have that compulsive behavior component. And I feel like if we are going to implement universal bans, we need research and we need education for these children, because I feel like if, just stripping stuff away, we know the nature of addiction and how that works, more fidgety and such like that. So having research and education and knowledge to be able to combat that and figure out a way, of course, I don't know what it is, but
I'm sure there's a way to be able to, whether it's education or, coping strategies that can be implemented within. And again, like having those conversations in teenagers and, of course, even earlier, being educated about let's have smart cell phone use because, as you said, adults have this issue too. And I think it's a real problem in society with connection. But without the education and research and implementations of strategies, I feel like this will be difficult.
David, jump in there because you've actually done the research or you've looked at what's out there as well. Do we have research to land us on one side or the other of this conversation?
Well, if we're talking about cell phone addiction, there's lots of research on that, and I think the caller who was just speaking made me think about the need for not just educating our students, and it might be part of our new curriculum, part of our new way of how education is today versus how it was 20 years ago, and presenting the real facts to kids today about self-diagnosing if they are addicted. Added to that, I believe, Janet, it's really important for parents to be aware of what the real facts are. And so, with my study that I did with grade 5 students, over half the kids who I looked at, and this was nearly 300 students, own their own cell phone or possess their own cell phone, some of which were admitting they've had it since grade 1. Many of these students are indicating they've got data plans with their phones. They're past protecting their phones without the parents' knowledge of it. They take their phones into their rooms at night without parents seemingly to care for it because the kids say they're taken to their rooms at night and they're waking up with those devices in their hands. So maybe parents aren't aware of what negativity it is. And it's not just having their kids having a cell phone, no big deal. It keeps them busy and it's not a huge concern, but it's a huge concern. And, I've got a list of signs and symptoms of cell phone addiction. If kids are aware of this, they can maybe do all the check boxes and say, maybe I need to regulate a little bit better. And if moms, dads, parents, and guardians are aware of these cell phone addiction criteria or listing of them, maybe that's where a conversation can have within households to then make the teacher's job, administrators' jobs in schools a bit easier on this topic.
So, Dee, if you're still with us, we're asking, wondering what information is out there for parents. Did you have a conversation with you? Continually have conversations with your kids about healthy relationships with their phones and how to have one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's continuous. And even for myself, keeping the cell phone out of the room at night because, and just like Tony was saying, waking up with that phone and having to have that constant contact with their friends and whatever it is. Yeah, this is a continuous conversation, knowing that, the kids that are taking their phones in their room at night have all those friends in that room with them. And, is that appropriate? And is,
And we know it can, the Center for Child Protection will tell you that shouldn't happen because that, unfortunately, not only cuts down on their risks on their sleep, but puts them at danger from sexting, and all the stuff that can happen there. All the scammers who can try to take advantage of them, the predators. David, your advice for parents then, where would you send a parent who's looking for more information on how to talk with their kids?
Oh boy, where to send them? There are some credible websites in Canada and the USA. I don't want to misrepresent any websites by saying them on
That's okay. I kind of threw that one at you with no warning. But you're a parent yourself. What do you do?
Yeah, I am. I got 4 kids, 2 who are now 20, a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. They've all got their phones. And I wish, my wife and I both say this now, we wish we would have held back with our 20-year-olds when they were in grade 7 and got their first phones to hold them back just a little bit longer. We did it with our 17-year-old. We're doing it with our 14-year-old who still doesn't have a data plan and is using one of our older phones for text and talk only. But our younger 2 still don't keep their phones in their bedrooms at night. Our older 2 are obviously 20, so they're adults, but, we wish we would have, done things a little differently. You're the good parent. You're not the bad parent by withholding the cell phone device from giving it to your kids too early, not getting them data plans so early. You're the better parent for holding back, not the accommodating one, the cool one. Stick to it as parents.
That's it. You want to be popular. You want your kid to like you, but that's not your job. You're not their friend, right?
The big picture in the years down the road is where the true harm is going to come, and that's more eyeglasses, less sociable kids, less ability to talk with each other. not being aware of nature and the world around them because their heads are always down. Everywhere they walk, the phone's in their hand, and every possible time they're looking down on it, crossing the street, sitting in the park. And adults are doing it too, Janet, and you know that. And it's too bad. We've kind of got past the tipping point now.
Yeah. Past the tipping point, you don't think there's any coming back? You don't think there'll be a pendulum swing?
I don't. I really don't. I think technology is just too prominent in this day and age. But there are things you can.
I think we're having a little audio issue with you, David. I just want to take a moment now to thank you very much for taking the time to share your expertise and this conversation with us.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Sorry, that was just my phone going off files.
See?
On audio. So,
probably one of your kids calling to say, Dad, what are you saying?
I actually think it is.
Oh, really? It's your 14-year-old. Dad, it's time for a data plan. Give me a data plan, Dad.
Dad, it's not going to happen anytime soon. We're a family of 6, a lot of balls in the air. But, for every parent and teachers listening today, I feel you're hurt. I feel I sympathize with you. And you're not the only family going through things with these cell phones. Stick to your guns, though. No phones at bedtime. Regulate. Be aware of what's on your kids' phones as well. Ask them to, ask your kids, can you check their phones? If there's an openness between each other, then you might get through to them more. Mealtime, reclaim mealtime as a no phone time ever for everybody. When you go to a restaurant, don't take your phone with you. Get outside more and just consciously be aware of how the devices are good, but how the devices have vices to them as well.
David Chorney is a father and a professor in the Faculty of Education at the University of Alberta. He studies technology and education, and we're grateful for his joining us today. Thanks, David.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Janet.
Holding on to something, always something better behind me in the rear view mirror, in just the spot that I can't see. Guess I gotta let it go. Waking up to ashes, maybe a bit of dirt. Either way, it means that I've put in work. Good or bad. I'm not trying to be nobody's best friend. I'd write my statement, but I just don't got a pen. I'm not trying to look for greener grass. Spring rains are coming my way and the winter kill has passed. Oh, summertime couldn't get here too fast. Say it's all in season, so why I feel like this. Little pill or a tanning bed is what I need to fix this thinking mind. I'm not trying to be nobody's best friend. I'd write my statement, but I just don't got a pen. I'm not trying to look for greener grass. Spring rains are coming my way and the winter kill has passed. Oh, summertime couldn't get here too fast. Oh,
Brandon's Mitchell McCoons with Summertime, a song celebrating the warm months of the year. If you were watching on YouTube, you saw me trying to convince Faith Fundal to get up and dance with me, but they said no.
Unsuccessfully.
No. Unsuccessful dance request, because you're concentrating on what's coming up on Up to Speed today.
Yes, we're going to head to France, where commemorations are being held for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. One of the people taking part is a young Manitoban, one of several university students in Normandy from this province. So we're going to hear from her about why it's important and why it matters so much for her to be there. to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
And the coolest thing that I love about these stories is when we get to see how much people in France are taught about Canadians and the Canadians who fought there and how they still, 80 years later, honor Canada.
There's a lot of love for Canadians there.
One of these years, I'm going to make it over there, absolutely, to list. Juneau. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Faith Mundall hosts Up to Speed, the program that airs between 3 and 6 p.m. today. Thank you for joining us today for Radio Noon. I want to thank Brad Lillies, who put us up on YouTube. Everyone who's watching on YouTube, thanks very much. Dylan Longhurst, who's playing that beautiful theme music for you right now. Thank you, Dylan, our studio technician. Corey Funk, the wonderful studio director, and everything else. He's just fabulous. You hear him every day on Radio Noon. Our show producer, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Those are our big bosses. Thanks, guys. Coming up next on CBC Radio 1, Writers and Company. I'm Janet Stewart, and I'll chat with you at noon tomorrow. Have a great day.